Okay, today we're going to be learning about the discriminant, but I want to do a quick review on solving a quadratic equation. So we have learned that, for example, x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. You remember that we solve for x. How do we solve for x? We make it a diamond problem. 6 goes on the top, 5 goes at the bottom. What numbers could you multiply to get 6 and add to get 5 will be 3 and 2. And you also learned that x plus 3 times x plus 2 gives you 0. And from there you have to find the values of x. So this will be x equals negative 3, x equals negative 2. What does that mean is the roots will be the x-intercepts. So you're going to have 2 roots, 2 x-intercepts. I'm going to also do a quick review on graphing. We graph linear equations. Now we're going to be graphing quadratic equations. And quadratic equations, the graph of a quadratic equation looks like what's actually called a parabola. And it looks like a U. Could be a U going up, an N coming down. It's also a C, and it could also be an backwards C. Okay, so that's a quadratic. That's the graph of a quadratic equation, and again, it's called a parabola. So from that, it comes the discriminant, and what is the discriminant? Is the square root of b squared minus 4ac. I'm going to give you one example with one root, one example with 2 roots, and one example with no roots at all. So if the discriminant has 2 roots, your graph is going to touch the x-intercept twice. So this is a graph with 2 roots, 2 x-intercepts. If your graph has 1 root or 1 x-intercept, it's going to touch the x once. So that will be a 1 root, 1 x-intercept. And if your graph has no roots or no x-intercepts, then your graph is not going to touch the x-axis. It's just going to go up here. Okay? So that will be a 0 roots, and there will be 0 x-intercept or no x-intercept. So that's an example of the discriminant, the different kinds of roots that you can have. A parabola can have 2 roots. It crosses the x-intercept. You have 2 x-intercepts. It can have 1 root, 1 x-intercept, or 0 roots, which means no x-intercepts. That's the graph. Now, how do you find that out when they give you an equation, for example, y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9, and they ask, identify the discriminant? First of all, we need to recall that, okay, what is the formula? It's going to be the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Now I need to label who represents a, who represents b, and who represents c. So I have the number in front of the x squared. It's a 1, that's your a. Your b is 6, and your c is 9. Put it inside the square root. So we have 6 to the second power, 6 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 9. 6 squared, 36. Negative 4 times 1, negative 4 times 9, negative 36. 36 minus 36 is 0. The square root of 0 has only one value, and that will be 0. So you have 1 root or 1 x-intercept. So this equation, y equals x squared plus 6x plus 9, has one root or one x-intercept. So when you graph it, it's going to be not exactly, but something. It would touch the x-axis once. Okay? And then we'll be doing more graphing later. Now let me give you an example with two roots. So for example, let's say y equals 5x squared minus 2x minus 6. Again, you have to identify your a, your b, take the sign in front of it, and your c. And take the square root of, again, b squared, negative 2 squared, minus 4 times a times c. Negative 2 to the second power, we got 4. 4 times 5 is negative 20. Put the negative 4 and negative 20 times negative 6. It will be a positive 1. Okay, 120. So we got 4 plus 120, which gives you 124. Now 124, the square root of that, you could have a positive or a negative. So this will give you two roots or two x-intercepts. So this is an example of a quadratic equation that has two roots or two x-intercepts. Then we move on to the next one, which will be the last example. And this is going to have no roots. Y equals 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. So again, identify your a is 2, b is negative 5, c is 6. Take the square root of b squared, negative 5 squared, minus 4 times 2 times 6. I have negative 5 squared is 25. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 4 is 48. 25 minus 48, that gives me a negative, and that will be negative 23. Now, could I have the square root of a negative? No. Therefore, this will give me 0 roots or no x-intercept. Okay, so we cover one root, two roots, and this is the third root. The main thing is, remember the discriminant, it's always going to be the square root of b squared minus 4ac.